And so one of the things that are, part of this practice is that, okay, you go to bed and you intend dreaming yourself. And so then you wake up in the dream and you're like, oh, there I am laying down actually in my bed. It's actually the time that it is. And I'm actually wearing those clothes or whatever. So I'm actually in my room, except in my dream body. And so now I'm going to go to the kitchen and I'm going to start washing the dishes. And so you go to the kitchen, start washing the dishes. Maybe you intend being able to hum a song that connects you to that dream power moment. And so maybe you start intending this and all of a sudden the song just starts coming out and you're just washing dishes. And so then the next day you wake up and you wait until nighttime, until it's again the same time that it was when you saw your body in the dream time. And then you go to the kitchen and you set the whole scene up in pretty much the exact same way it was when you were dreaming, except now you're awake in your physical body, and you start washing the dishes and you start singing the song that you were channeling through the dream time. And all of a sudden, reality begins to lose, like you start like anchoring that dream consciousness on the physical world. And so then all of a sudden, the Toltecs would do it with everything. I work with the Tolkien calendar. The one that is of the 13 months is about the solar year. And it was like Jose Arguelles's idea to divide the solar year into 13 months instead of 12 to try and align, I guess, human consciousness with more natural time with the 13 moons. But the calendar I use doesn't go with the sun, doesn't go with anything physical. It is the calendar that tracks the pulses of the archetypical consciousness emanations that are coming directly from quantum intent. So it has nothing to do with any sun or any star or any cycle of the earth. It's a calendar that is based on the human being consciousness and our embodiment in 3D. And that's why it's made up of 20 signs, which represent the 20 fingers and toes of the human body. And it has 13 tones that each of the 20 signs can occupy as a frequency, which represent the 13 major articulations of the human body. And then together they make 260 combinations, and that is meant to be roughly the amount of time it takes for a baby to be conceived and born in a human womb. And then also another interesting part is that in the Popol Vuh, which is the sacred book of the Maya, that the original manuscript or codex was stolen or lost, or nobody knows what happened to it. But in that book, that got then translated by some Mayan people back in the day that learned to write Mayan with the Spanish alphabet because this priest taught them. And then the priest found this manuscript and he was able to translate it into Spanish. And so there, the Maya people wrote down the story of creation of the world. And it's super cool because it's almost like the Silmarillion, but of the Mayan people. And so it tracks the way that God or creator went about, but they don't talk about singular God. They talk about the many facets of God coming together to sort of then create humanity first out of wood. And so they made this like wooden humans, and these wooden humans couldn't reproduce and they couldn't remember creator. And so the gods were very displeased. And so then they brought the fire and they burnt humanity away. And then the second try, they were like, okay, let's make humans out of mud. And so they made humans out of mud, and these mud humans could reproduce, but they couldn't remember creator. And so they couldn't give thanks. And again, the gods were displeased. So they brought the flood and they got wiped out the mud humans. And so then they decided, okay, let's make humans out of corn. And so then they grabbed the 4 ears of corn, the red corn, the yellow corn, the blue corn, the white corn. And with the white corn belonging to the north and the mind and consciousness and perception, they made the white race, which is the one leading technology and communications and all of this, concepts, because duality and everything can only exist within the conceptual mind. And so that's why the Westerner or Occidental person has been the one imposing the ideas and all of these systems, of thought processing and stuff onto the other races. And then the yellow is of the South, and the fire and the dreaming and spirit and the connection with all of this like ancestral knowledge, and it is the Asians. And so it's got like India and Japan and China and, all of this deeply spiritual, beings that have been keeping the fire of this stuff, burning for a long time. And then there's the blue corn, and from that one they made the black race, and that deals with the West and the earth and the body, and it's like Africa and all of the animals and the different minerals and the jewels and the bodies of the thing and the drums and the connection to the earth and all of this like super powerful earth energy. And then there's the red, which is the Aborigine, and it belongs to the East and the water and emotions and all these feelings. And it's like all the First Nations peoples, and from Australia to North America down to Ecuador. And, they're all like the water protectors, and they're like wings, and they have all their ceremonies of emotional processing. And it's like, super interesting how in the Popol Vuh they describe how the gods made humanity out of corn, and it has this relationship with the Mayan calendar also, because it's supposed to be that one perfect ear of corn, of like heirloom non-GMO corn, is supposed to have 260 kernels in it. And in the Mayan system, each day is considered a corn kernel, and each person is a day, it's a sun, it's a corn kernel. And so this facets of the days also is the solar energy that we're getting, the solar consciousness, but the solar consciousness is only like a transmitter. It's supposed to be coming directly from Hunapku, which is like the core central birth canal of the creation. And so it's supposed to be like the central sun of the multiverse that is like emanating all of the different frequencies and all of the light emanations, I guess kind of like what you see when you're on DMT or something. Yeah. And it's all coming out. And even Don Juan in the books of Carlos Castañeda explains about the eagle's emanations or the cosmos emanations, and how it is like all bound together by intent. And it's all just this like infinite facets of self-awareness and consciousness and light that is just this one blended huge crazy power. And so this Hunapku sun is like emanating the intent of manifestation of the multiverse, and then each galaxy has its own sort of like central birth canal place. And for us in the Milky Way, it's to be considered that like dark spot that is the one that is the alignment of the precession of the equinox, which is supposed to be this, when you look at the Milky Way in a clear sky, there's that one facet of the Milky Way that has no stars. And that spot of no stars is supposed to be kind of like the, birth canal of where our galaxy receives all of this emanations of the cosmos in the kind of raw form, and sort of like pre-digested. I think of it as like a mama bird, how it just like chews up stuff first and then regurgitates only what we need. And so then the sun of our specific solar system takes in that like baby food or whatever that our galaxy kind of pre-digested for the sun. And then the sun does its own processing and then gives us the emanations. And so it's this like kind of like relay stations that refine the raw intent of creation into the specific intent of our not only collective expression, but our individual day by day ways in which we are being pretty much played like marionettes, except that we each still get our own free will. And so we get to each come up with how we will interpret our directive or our divine nature, just the way a rose is a rose like any other rose, but still gets to express its own like self-expression of a rose in its own unique way. And so there is nothing like anything else, and yet we are all bound by this divine directives and divine patterns.
So
Calendar that tracks that.
Energy. Yeah. So it's much more to do with reading the energies of is it when you were born, basically? And then so that's the energy of the day you're born is. And you said 260. How does that go into 365? Like, didn't you say that the 260 pieces?
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't. It's independent because the 260 days of the Tolkien calendar is an eternal system that has no beginning and no end. And that's why when people were saying we are finishing the Mayan calendar is coming to an end, the Mayans had over 19 different calendars. They were actually keeping track of tons of stuff. I mean, I've spent 24 years studying one calendar. I have no clue what all the other multiple calendars are doing, but I do know that this Tolkien calendar is the sacred calendar. It's like the eternal calendar, the calendar that tracks the intent of creator and how we are supposed to express based on this, and that the sun and the stars and the moon and all these things are part of it. But the cycles of the sun has 260-day cycle with affecting the 260-day cycle at all. It's like the 260-day cycle informs everything else because it precedes creation. It's like the raw intent of pre everything, pre stars, pre sun, pre planet, pre everything. And so it is the one eternal look at the dates of this. It's like you get this like crazy dates that are just like so far away, and it's never gonna end. It's just this day by day, the counting of the days, and that's why the day keepers that are part of the original lineage of this stuff, they were the ones that just day by day tracking the consciousness emanating from the sun and having these cycles that are not meant to be interfered with or adulterated or anything in any way whatsoever by physical manifestation. They're like just this.
So it's a completely different cycle to the linear year, basically. And like you said, it's the gestation period as well. So it's literally before creation, right? Before we're created. Right. So is it called Mayan astrology?
It's mind-blowing.
Do you call it astrology, or because it's not?
That's what I call it.
I
think I call it astrology just as a way for people to grasp how it can be applied. But it is not astrology because it is not the logic of any star system. It is
energy,
the intent of quantum consciousness. And so I have no idea how that would be called.
That's
especially
really
because
interesting.
people We tend to be referencing things to other things, and the Mayan calendar has no point of reference. So I just call it astrology.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. So there's the 260-day sun cycle, and every one of those days has a different energy, and that equals the 260. And whatever day you're born on, that energy is your natal. Is that right? Is that what the first reading was called? The natal?
Yeah, it's your natal chart.
Natal chart.
And it's kind of really, my journey with it, which is self-taught. And in my chart, I have a lot of the same signs that you have. So I have followed also a path of being autodidactic and having to sort of learn directly from creation. And Spirit has been my direct teacher. And it's been 23 years ago when I first started learning. I had first started learning with the Dream Spell Mayan calendar, which was Jose Arguelles' interpretation. And it's like the modern version of the calendar. And when that first came out, the Mayan elders were very displeased because he was giving everything this different twist that they were feeling like he was blasphemous, sort of destroying the tradition, misrepresenting the lineage and all these things. But I didn't know that there was any of that, going on. I just thought, this is the Mayan calendar. I'm learning the Mayan calendar now. And then like a year and a half into my learning, I was visited in a dream by these different animals and a sorcerer, and they were doing all this amazing stuff with a seed, and there was a spider and a lizard, and there was recapitulation going on according to this very powerful, amazing dream that is like super vivid in my mind still forever. And I didn't really know how to interpret the symbology. I woke up, I was like, wow. But then a couple weeks later, a friend of mine showed up with a book of the elders, and it's called the Quiche Count, and it's because this last living descendants of the original Mayan kingdoms that have been the keepers of this wisdom since back then are belonging to the Quiche house, which was one of the 4 great houses of the Mayan kingdoms. And so all of a sudden I was like, wow, how interesting. And I looked up my sign in that system, and I realized I was a different sign from the Dream Spell Mayan sign. And so then I opened up the page where the elders had put mine according to their system. And I couldn't believe it. It was just telling me all this information about my dream, about the lizard and the spider and the fact that I was a seed and the unification of polarity. And then in the dream, the sorcerer had been holding a seed in his hand. And it was just like so mind-blowing. I was like, wow, I wonder what the Mayan elders say about Mayan one. And so I opened up that page, which in that system I am the sun, and I started reading it. And I was just like, wow. In that one, my animal spirit wasn't even an animal. It was a human being, and it was the like sorcerer seed. And so I was both the seed and the sorcerer, and those were my signs. And the sorcerer was doing all the practices that belong to this seed energy of the recapitulation and stuff. And so I just felt like there was like a cosmic cast iron pan. And that smashed me on the head and left me seeing little rainbow hummingbirds around my head. And I was just so blown away by how creator and the Mayan symbols had come into my dream space to sort of bring to my attention that there was 2 systems, and that they had, and that there was no mistake in Jose Arguelles coming up with this new system. and that the ancient wisdom was not to be obsolete and disregarded as a bunch of old people out of touch with the modern times, but that it really was like this huge tree, that the ancient quiche hold the roots and the connection to the ancestors and the elementals and all of the stories of nature and the symbolisms of all of the archetypes, that the dream spell doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of what these amazing energies hold, because it is the elders that have this like ancestral wisdom. But the dream spell does reach into this new co-creative dreaming of this amazing awareness and consciousness at the planetary level, no, where we are all together interacting and we are all together going through this amazing sort of like a collaborative process. And the ancient quiche were not looking at it that way, no. And so it was like this full thing of the ancient and the new, and this divine science of consciousness and like all that stuff that just marked my own journey with it. And I ended up developing this synthesis, like a synergy system. But it was because I was led to come to that realization. And even when I didn't understand the symbolism of the dream, spirit still got some friend to come all the way to my house, which was, I was living in North Van, and he had to take a bus for an hour to come and bring me this book in my hand in my house, so that I would be able to realize what the dream was telling me. So it's just been, you know, very much taken by the hand like a little baby. But like it's, yeah, it's been very tremendous, no? Yeah. The way that I've just been led to see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you mentioned dreaming a lot too. Is that like a Mayan sort of term, or is that you see? Because I've been looking at the, you know, Australian Aboriginals, and they talk a lot about dreaming, but their dreaming is more, they tend to refer, well, I think they're referring to the past, but they also don't see time like we see time. But is there any correlation there? Do you know, like just in the, like the term dreaming, like when you say dreaming, what do you mean? Well, like a collective vision, or
yeah, no, but it is all put together, because even for me, my journey with the Mayan calendar was accompanied at the same time. It's like I learned about the Mayan calendar, and maybe 5 months later, I allowed for this person to stay at my house for a couple of weeks. I met him at a party in Vancouver, and back then the whole community, you know, everybody was really gorgeous and super nice. And so I was like, oh, great person, sure, stay at my house for a couple of weeks. And after connecting really nice friendship, talking, whatever, of a couple of weeks, he was leaving, and he came as a thank you present, gave me all the books of Carlos Castaneda brand new, bought them in a bookstore, brand new. And he's like, here, I think you will do good with this material. I was like, okay, just this like 20-year-old kid, like, sure. And so then I started reading all this stuff at the same time that I was practicing the Mayan calendar as a newbie. No, I was just trying to wrap my head around the archetypes and all the synchronicities and everything, just totally revelation upon revelation, super mind-blowing. And then when I had this dream, I was already practicing celibacy according to the Toltec teaching. As I was already practicing lucid dreaming according to the Toltec teachings. I was already practicing cultivating sexual energy according to the Toltec teachings, and also Mantak Chia, because I also ended up getting the books of the sexual kung fu and microcosmic orbit, and how to absorb the energy from the ovaries into the womb. And it's just this total science of the body that, you know, whatever, you definitely don't learn in sex ed in school or whatever.
I know. Well, it's a creative energy, isn't it?
Yeah. And so in the dream that I had of these different archetypes coming in there through their animal spirits. It was like a combination of everything. The sorcerer was recapitulating according to the Toltec teachings, and then also a different part of the dream led me to a lake where a lizard came out, which is one of the animal spirits of the seed. And this lizard bestowed upon me this divine unconditional love that I grabbed the lizard and I rubbed her on my ovaries, because I knew that that's just what it was. And all the dreaming power for women comes from our sexual organs, and the womb, according to the Toltec teachings, is the dreaming organ, and it is totally connected to divine creation. And so according to the Toltec teachings and the way the Mayan calendar unfolds, the divine expressions of consciousness from the intent of quantum realm into the manifested 3D realm is with the very clear knowing that 3D reality is one more different facet of the divine dream of creator. And there is actually no physical reality. It is all the mystery of perception, aligning and interpreting the filaments of energy that are coming from creator, that the Mayan calendar expresses the intent of collectively, but we each are our own mini interpreter too. We also have a point within our energy body, which is called the assemblage point, according to the Toltec teachings, where we ourselves align these filaments of energy that are coming from creator. Reality is not as we have been told it is. And that's why in the Toltec practices, sorcerers are taught a totally different definition of the world. There's the world of man and the world of sorcery. And then what they do is they squeeze a vacuum place between both definitions and slip through the middle and get rid of all definitions, get rid of all ideas, get rid of everything in order to perceive creation directly without concepts and without filters.
The program,
And so that is like so that is the divine process that has been developed, where like the Toltec teachings are almost like the practice manual for the consciousness expressions of the Mayan calendar. So they actually are one system. So in my own journey with it, I have been blown away again and again and again, because even though I had that dream so early on, it's taken me forever to realize how it actually is all really meant to be one single system. No, how the timekeeping of the calendar, perfection of the moment, and the divine perfection of relationship, and the divine perfection of the way that we ourselves are an expression of the intent of the divine in every breath we take, in every single thing we do. And then at the same time, how there is this human technology of the Toltec path that allows us to know how to tap into the dream time, how to use the dream time as a means of awakening in this dream, which is still a dream. And so that's why everything is always about a dream within a dream, and so like the Toltec warriors were always practicing dreaming together. And so they were able to train themselves into being able to find the physical bodies in the dream as they're sleeping, but then see their real body there laying there, almost like an astral projection, except that it's not an astral projection. It is the dream consciousness that keeps the awakening consciousness, and then is able to find real time and place existence. And so then is able to move through the world in that dream consciousness, but experiencing the same world that you would experience if you were awake in real time, being able to see real world events and being able, and that's where like the Mayan healers would meet somebody that's like, hey, I'm sick, or I've got this issue or whatever. And then the healer would be like, okay, take this candle, put it in your room at night. And then they would go to sleep, the healer at night, and in their dream body, find that person through that candle that has like some energetic connection. And then they're able to go into the body of that person, into the dreaming of that person, and be able to see how that person's doing and talk directly to the consciousness body of that person and receive insights into what are the imbalances, the different consciousness belief systems, the different things that need to be cleansed and purified. And so then the next morning they would wake up with full awareness of what that person's true condition is and what they need, because the body told them directly through the dream time. And so then they would know, the body would tell them, I need this plant, or I need this mineral, or I need this ceremony, or I need this whatever, directly from the dream body consciousness of that person. And so then the healer would be like, okay, I'm going up the mountain to go find that plant, or I'm gonna go find that cave, or I'm gonna download that song, or I'm gonna, whatever it is that got shown. And so then when the healer would find the plant, be like, oh, here's the plant. And so then they would lay down next to the plant and go into dreaming again, which is lucid dreaming. And so then they would dream with the consciousness of that plant, and they would ask the plant, okay, so you're the plant for this person, how do I prepare you? And the plant would be like, yes, gather my roots, smush them like this, make a tea, do this thing, and so then the healer would wake up and be like, okay, thank you so much, plant, and would grab the roots and and prepare it, everything exactly how the plant told it directly in dreaming. And so dreaming for the Toltec practitioner or for the Mayan healer or whatever is not the same as going to bed at night and having random dreams. It is a practice that is done diligently, consciously. They cultivate their sexual energy. They don't have melodrama relationships. They don't have wasting of their power. They practice lots of abstinence, but it's not in a repressive way. They do all kinds of practices of organs are meant to develop deep alignment with their cervical orgasms and with being able to activate their sexual power with the wind, because wind energy has the breath of the Divine Father, and it's like pure Shiva consciousness. And so then the female sorceress or warrior would be able to cultivate her receptivity and her divine alignment with that masculine penetration power of this raw consciousness, and be able to actually make love to the wind, and be able to be generating this like wild unthinkable like orgasms and things from making love directly to spirit, and then be able to harness and cultivate for their path. It's like there is tremendous wisdom and teachings that have not been widely studied seriously. Most people read these books and they think, oh, this dude made it up, he's tripping out. But that's only because they never took it seriously and practiced. But I come from a lineage of Mexican witchcraft. I have many different medicine people and trippy witches in my family. And so even though I also did my first communion and sometimes went to church on Sundays, I always knew that this stuff was matter of fact. And so I never had one single iota of skepticism, because I saw it and I experienced it growing up. And so when I first had these books come into my life, I was more like, oh, look at this great manual. Rather than,
Yeah, there's a time to start, is
it? Yeah, so in my own journey, because I took it literally from the get-go, and because I was guided by spirit in not these very deep ways where for me it was undeniable to know. Then I went into the dreaming practice seriously. I did the abstinence seriously. Like last year in February, I finished my recipe that the Toltecs say of needing to cleanse your womb for 7 years from any ejaculation, connections to all males. And so actually I did do my 7 years finally. I started trying to get it done when I was 21, but obviously I was too young and I wanted to live life too much to be able to actually complete it. No, I tried 3 times. The first time at like 21, and then I broke it. And then the second time around like 25, and I broke it. And then this last time, I'm 44 now, so I finished it when I was 43. And yeah, it was 7 years of just learning to relate to body, sex, the divine masculine, feminine, all this stuff, aided by David Data work and these amazing teachings of polarity and everything in relationship to spirit, but also in relationship to dreaming, in relationship to channeling and being the conduit for this Mayan calendar thing to come through, and to not have it be sabotaged in any way by my own melodrama or my own like
prejudices,
non-impeccable living.
Ego.
I knew
yeah, well, it's all that compulsions and all that kind of stuff, isn't it? It's but there's so many links, when you look at modern religion, there's so many links to all this ancient knowledge anyway, but it's clear it's all been inverted. I mean, we have obviously, nuns and priests, they have to take vows of chastity, so that's obviously come from somewhere, but, like I said, they just invert the meaning. So all this kind of stuff, with the dreaming, I mean, it's almost like the Holy Spirit, isn't it? So that's more of a practice of leaving the physical world, or actually, well, it's like leaving your body, is it? But being in the physical world, but in a spirit form. Is that what happens? Is that what the deal is? Is that what ghosts are?
It's in the dreaming consciousness. Yeah. I don't have any clue what ghosts are, but definitely based from my experience of practicing lucid dreaming and how we really have many different disembodied awarenesses that share this energy consciousness space with us. And so, yes, we can run into other beings that have their own awareness, but that do not have bodies, and that we cannot see them when we're awake. But in the dream time, there is actually when you're lucid dreaming, which is the capacity to be aware that you're asleep and to be like, oh, I'm in the dream time, but it's me. And so then I can have wings, or I can do, whatever. So this capacity to be awake in the dream is a way of being able to connect directly to divine consciousness. And so all the symbolisms in a lucid dream mean totally different things than what a symbolism of a regular dream at night would be. And so there's like this totally different relationship to all the symbolisms. Water doesn't mean the same thing when you're in a lucid dream that what it means if you're in a regular unconscious dream. And so this whole thing of the dream time, there are actually practices within the Toltec teachings to be able to bridge the dream world and the physical world, which is also a dream world, except that it's a very heavy dream world, because the definitions of this dream world are like so, not like the way everything's expressed and defined, like it's all made up of bricks. But the bricks are pure quantum energy. So it really ends up being an illusion of solid, an illusion of heavy, an illusion of all of these things that sort of tie us down. And so with the energy of the practices of the Toltec teachings in the dream time, a lot of it has to do with being able to create different portals. And so one of the things that are, part of this practice is that, okay, you go to bed and you intend dreaming yourself. And so then you wake up in the dream and you're like, oh, there I am laying down actually in my bed. It's actually the time that it is. And I'm actually wearing those clothes or whatever. So I'm actually in my room, except in my dream body. And so now I'm going to go to the kitchen and I'm going to start washing the dishes. And so you go to the kitchen, start washing the dishes. Maybe you intend being able to hum a song that connects you to that dream power moment. And so maybe you start intending this and all of a sudden the song just starts coming out and you're just washing dishes. And so then the next day you wake up and you wait until nighttime, until it's again the same time that it was when you saw your body in the dream time. And then you go to the kitchen and you set the whole scene up in pretty much the exact same way it was when you were dreaming, except now you're awake in your physical body, and you start washing the dishes and you start singing the song that you were channeling through the dream time. And all of a sudden, reality begins to lose, like you start like anchoring that dream consciousness on the physical world. And so then all of a sudden, the Toltecs would do it with everything. They would rake the leaves, they would wash the toilet, everything in the dream time, and their consciousness lucid dreaming. So then when they would wake up, they would go with tasks, but they would be creating portals where the dream consciousness would be superimposing itself on the waking consciousness until eventually they were able to create gateways for the dream body to cross over. And then you were able to have these people that bilocate, where you can see them in this town and that other town, because one is the physical body and the other one is the dream body that has actualized in the physical 3D world, except that it's an energy body. It cannot be hugged, it cannot eat, it doesn't get cold. And so then this is one aspect of Toltec teachings that's just like, like super advanced, but it has been practiced by people in Tibet, by people in Africa, by people in Mexico, by people all over the place for eons and eons. This is really not anything new.
No,
but it's definitely part of the teachings of our sacred makeup that are really kept in the shadows. And I mean, they're all written down in the books of Carlos Castaneda. I mean, it's really out there, like Tibetan dream yoga, there's books about that. But the thing is that we have been made to feel that life is so rigid, so solid, so 3D, and all these things are hocus pocus or somebody's trippy dream. And so we just disregard the wisdom right there in front of your face, and everybody's like, whatever. And they spend more time arguing about whether the dude was on drugs or like, let's check it out.
Yeah. I know. It's bizarre, isn't it? But I mean, that's what we're programmed for. That's what the education system's for. That's what
that's why
TV's for. That's what it's all for, isn't it? To build this shell of this program of perception around us.
And that's, so that we don't have access to the information that is right in front of our face. And I personally feel that that's why the lineages were broken, so that the information would be at everybody's fingertips. That's why Tibet got invaded, because the Tibetan wisdom had to go everywhere. That's why, with the Spaniards coming over here and destroying everything, and then, the Mayan calendar and everything going into hiding, the Toltec teachings went into hiding, everything went into hiding. And then finally, Jose Arguelles ended up wanting to write the Mayan Factor and all this stuff that forced the Mayan elders to come out with their own vision and interpretation, because they weren't sharing it with anybody. It was their own sacred teachings. It was going to stay in the jungle forever. They were never going to tell anybody. It was this man that forced their hand to then have to kind of like correct the record, because they saw what he was sharing as being so crazy and so out of like alignment, that they were like, now we have to come clean with what we have been the custodians of. And then also with Carlos Castañeda meeting these magical people that were super powerful, and then not even being the proper inheritor of that knowledge as him actualizing it in his own life, but then he was the conduit for all of this information to get disseminated all over the world. And so now everybody has access to it, but the programming of the movies and the programming of the assumptions of the school system and the programming, it uses the same science, the science of imagery, the science of imagination that were first, downloaded back in Egypt, and all these things of how to manipulate humanity based on the stories you tell, and on the dreams you get them into investing their energy into. That's why the predictive programming is all about showing us images of what they want us to create. And so they put the end of the world and the cataclysms and everybody dying and all these things, not because that is an assured thing or because it's actually going to happen, but because it's powerful, will actually manifest what they're showing us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, they don't have that creative power, and we do. And so their only power is to make us create what they want. That's the trick. That's the whole game, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you heard of a book?
And that's why the counter narrative has to be our true potential.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is the thing, like when you look at the past, the stories, all the fairy tales, they're actually real. And all what we're told is history is actually not real. So, that they take away all the magic and all the cool stuff and replace it with war and say, no, you just run around killing each other for the last 1,000 years. So it's just, yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it?
What did you mention of a book?
I read a book. It's a series.
I thought you said something about a book.
Yeah, it's called The Wheel of Time. But it's like a modern, like series. It's actually about 12 books or so, and every book is over 1,000 pages, so it's quite a read. But it talks a lot about dreaming, and they go into dream. Like they literally go in, like you talk about, they go into dream. They go out in the world and they go and check out where things are, and they've got to watch out for the bad spirits getting them. And they don't call them portals, but they call them ways, or I think way tunnels or something. It's just reminded me when you were talking, it's just very, very similar. It's just this story, and it goes through different cycles of time as well, like how, it's just, so I thought I'd mention that. If anyone wants to go and tackle, 15,000 pages of story, go check it out, The Wheel of Time.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. I was just saying, as I was reading it, the guy kept writing it, and it just kept getting longer and longer. It sucked.
Yeah, one of the things that people always ask me is, how do I think the Maya came up with the Mayan calendar? Rigid, dense 3D system would say, from the perspective of archaeologists and anthropologists, they did it through observation and trial and error. And they looked at the stars for generations upon generations. And then they were able to come up with the stuff. And I'm just like, I don't think so, because the Maya were really deeply connected with non-linear reality, and they were also very deeply connected with the plant medicines, and they were deeply connected with the dream time, and they lived in a totally different reality from the one we live, in which sorcery and all kinds of stuff were commonplace. And so just the way that their healers were able to heal by dreaming directly with the body of a person and receiving the information directly from the body, and then being able to go find the plants or the cave or whatever and interact directly with that consciousness and receive the instructions on how to prepare and how to administer and everything. We in the past, the world in a direct communication through the dream time. And so I feel very, very clearly that the Maya were a people that were deeply, deeply aligned with the dream time, and they were inheritors of Vedic wisdom, and they knew all kinds of stuff that we have no clue now. But I feel that because it is true, when you're in lucid dreaming, you can intend whatever you want in connection to creator, and you will be shown. You could be writing a book and want to see how the book must be written, and go into the dream time of the lucid dreaming at night asleep, and when you're awake in the dream time, be like, intend to see the full content of my book. And then all of a sudden, however the symbolism of the dream would happen, the pages would align or whatever, and then it would start seeing all the words formed, or maybe it would be through images, or however it would manifest for each individual. But then all of a sudden, when you wake up in the morning, it's like, aha, I saw the whole thing. And so now all you have to do is just transcribe it into how the Maya would be able to dream the system that aligns consciousness of the human being to planetary consciousness to universal consciousness, and to have the calendar just like bloop, be handed down, just like, this is the system. Because also, like, say, the Yaqui Indians in northern Mexico were asked how come their beadwork, make the beautiful bracelets, how come some of the beadwork actually had the DNA helix in it? Because they've been making this bead work for 2,500 years. So in the dream time, I mean, the dream is the most powerful microscope or telescope. You can see out into the heavens or into creation in the macrocosmos, or you can see inside the body, inside the cells, inside the organs, inside the energy systems. And so they were able to see the DNA spiral in the dream time, and then weave it in their beadwork when they're awake, and anchor all of this divine knowledge that they were able to see through the dream. And so this whole thing, practicing, can verify everything for themselves. You can verify anything.
And it's like you said before, because they did it in the dream and they repeat it in the real world, it makes it stronger and makes their link to the dream world stronger. So which means then in the dream world, they can see more of what they want, then they repeat it in the world. It's just this spiral, isn't it?
Yeah. But it definitely takes impeccability to be able to dream well. When you have a melodrama life, when you have huge unfinished business, when you have all this ancient trauma, and when unfinished childhood issues, then dreaming is very hard. Dreaming gets very heavy. Dreaming gets very repetitive, and it doesn't really have the power and the brightness and the lightness of spirit that is meant to really have. And that's why in the Toltec teachings, there is an emphasis on recapitulating, which is to reclaiming the energy from previous life interactions and giving back the energy from those interactions, which leads to behavior and how you have created everything. And then there's also the erasing personal history part, which is being able to wipe the slate clean of the story about yourself that you tell people and that you tell yourself. And then there is also the being able to cleanse the physical vessel and the sexual energy, and have the capacity to be impeccable in action, thought, word, and feeling, and to be able to have this like impeccability alignment of clarity and self-awareness and gratitude and healing and forgiveness and memory before they were 11. No, and I feel that's because prior to that age, that is where the dream child is alive. That is where the magic consciousness is still alive. Issues, the magic child consciousness is amnesia, hidden in the subconscious from the waking consciousness of whoever becomes the adult. No, and that's why so many adults don't understand children, and they don't understand the magic mind of the child, because they are themselves disconnected from their own magical child, because of this rift that happens to most people because of the lack of integration of trauma and the lack of integration.
Yeah, I mean, and what's the other thing that they tell you when you go to school, right? Don't daydream. Don't daydream. Look at me, and if you've got a imaginary friend, they tell you that they don't exist. That's literally, and then they teach you about spelling. So that's how we sort of enter the world. They've got it all covered, haven't they? You mentioned before.
They do.
Oh, sorry. Just like lucid dreaming, like one way to get into it is to, if you do something in a dream, to repeat it. Have you got any other tips of how people can start lucid dreaming? Because I know a lot of people out there, a lot of people do it just spontaneously, and then everyone else wants to do it, and then has a lot of troubles. Of course, de-stressing, I guess, is the first step.
Trying to be somewhere where you don't have 10,000 Wi-Fi modems obviously really helps. Always been when I was living in the forest, or when I was living on the beach, or when I was living somewhere, when there's no interference of electromagnetic frequencies. Also, being able to live an emotionally impeccable life in a way that you don't have a bunch of issues with people, with lovers, with, all of these things, also like having deep conflicts between you and your profession and all this stuff also just creates interference that just makes it harder for the deep relaxation that is sort of like the best scenario to be able to really focus, because it's all about intent. Anybody can do it if they can focus enough. But when we have so many distractions, and when our attention is being pulled in all these emotional directions, then it gets really difficult to be able to actually set the intent. No, so one of the main things, because all that it requires is for us to intend it to happen, for it to happen, is to spend every single day, all day long, intending to recognize that this is a dream also. No, and so you have to be telling yourself all day long, I am dreaming, I am dreaming, I am dreaming. And this is not just like a repetition affirmation thing, which is like really not effective. This is about actually being able to feel the intent that binds your light cells together. It's almost as if our whole energy body and physical vessel is put together by the intent of the divine. And it is the substance that unites every atom, every molecule, every facet of our being. And so to be able to feel almost like the space between every cell and every molecule and every photon, and to intend with that part of ourselves. And so it's like Toltecs say that intending is the act of believing without believing, because you cannot hold on to it. You have to let it very lightly. No, so it's like you are convincing yourself of something, but that you're already certain of. No, so there is this in-between place all the time where things come into manifestation. And so it's like you are dreaming, and at the same time you're making yourself realize you are dreaming. And so, but it is through repetition to repetition that all of a sudden when you're asleep and you're all of a sudden doing some random thing in a dream, and you'll be like, I am dreaming. But it is just the repetition of the very process you did when you were awake. You were saying, I am dreaming, I am dreaming. You were washing the dishes, I am dreaming, I am dreaming. You're driving, I am dreaming,
Okay,
I am
gotcha.
dreaming. You know, whatever it is you're doing, it's like you're like giving yourself this repetition, I'm dreaming, I'm dreaming. And so then when you're asleep, all of a sudden it takes over and you're like, I'm dreaming. And then you wake up in the dream, but then it's easy to get lost in the dreaming. No, all of a sudden you wake up, you're dreaming, but then all of a sudden you start walking around, you're like, oh, unicorns or pink trees or whatever. And then all of a sudden you go back into the dream of being asleep and you lose the lucidity. And so that's where Don Juan would tell Carlos Castañeda one thing he had to do was practice keeping his dreaming attention when he did wake up in the dream. And so that's where they would use the hands, where you would like wake up in the dream and immediately you would look at your hands. And then you would look at the facet of the dream, and then you would look at your hands. And then you would look at another facet of the dream and then look at your hands. And so the hands are just a mechanism to bring you back into focus, to not get lost in the symbolisms, to not get lost in the images, to not get lost in the infinite potential and possibilities of the dream world, but to be coming back to yourself. I'm here, and then I'm here. And so by doing this a lot, eventually you don't need to do it anymore. You get good enough at staying present, no, and not getting sidetracked with what's happening out there, so that then you can actually begin intending. No, so that like if you're going to intend, you know, whatever. And so men and women can intend with that intent that is like binding their being together. But like in the Toltec teachings, men were supposed to craft themselves an external womb, which is something that I'm guessing they would receive directly from the dream time, you know, ask intent, how do I do this? But women would do it with their actual womb organ, no, by having clean sexual energy, by having healing relationships and no melodrama. Then they would have a healthy womb, and then they would be able to intend with their ovaries. And so then this intent act of believing without believing and holding something and letting it go at the same time, this like in between place that is the act of intending, would be initiated with the whole physical body feeling, but also with the ovaries as a woman. And so then in the dream time, you are practicing intending in this way, whatever it is that you want to connect with. And so it's obviously a lot of trial and error. Mm-hmm. And a lot of just getting practice. It's like if you're going to the gym or something, about cleaning your life, cleaning your waking world, cleaning the integrity of your choices and your words and your thoughts and your emotions, no, being able to be coherent, being able to actually put all your ducks in a row, no, instead of having, I want this, but I want that, and I choose this, but I say that. No, like when you're like disjointed, it's very hard to intend. No, it's kind of like you have to put yourself in alignment with your own thing. And that's why I love doing the Mayan astrology readings, because through the Mayan calendar and through the way that I'm able to tune into people and connect them with their own life trajectory, they are able to see how they're totally on track, how they're in the perfect place at the perfect time. They don't need to be doubting. They don't need to be confused. They don't need to be second guessing. They don't need to be going in all kinds of crazy directions. No, it's like, no, you're there. You are it. You're like doing it. No, like you're like flawless. You're like totally on track. And this is you. And so don't waste any more energy with the second guessing and the doubting and the listening to the naysayers and all the different images coming from the outside. Just know that you are the embodiment of divine perfection and divine timing, and you are totally on track. every freaking second of the day. And there is nowhere else that you're missing out. There is nothing that you should be reaching for. It's all manifesting through your own divine timing, and you are in perfect alignment with it, and you cannot fall off of it. And there is nothing that can derail you at all from that ever-present perfection. And so that is like, not this like relaxation at such a deep level to know that you're on track, and that you're on track with this amazing power, and that you're on track with this amazing way that you have had from the continuity of your conception until now, and that it's going to continue. There is nothing where you're going to mess up. There is nothing. And so then if things happen that are hard, or things become challenging or whatever, it's all just part of the divine perfection. And so we can move into solution, problem solving, seeing the true gift, being able to be in alignment with the divine way that this is part of the perfection. And so then it's not mistake, sin, all this like defeating ideas, no, that are a lie.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Just someone else's opinion. All right. Thank you. So you have a course, an online event coming up on Tuesday, is it? What's that all about?
It's a Monday night at 5 p.m. till 7 p.m. Cancun time. I go easier by cities than I do by the time zones. I always get very confused with time zones. And so it's in Cancun time, 5 p.m. I can send you the link for it. Yep. And it is an online ceremony. So what inspired me to want to do this is that, well, I already host ceremonies at my house where this is not like ayahuasca ceremony or something like that. It is ceremonies that are catered to different focus. And I use the Toltec teachings and the Mayan calendar, holistic medicine, different polarity practices, and cultivating of our, you know, whatever masculine, feminine thing. But this one, I was evoked into coming up with it by prompting from my girlfriend in Canada because of the vaccine passports and many people getting freaked out or not being able to work or feeling travel restriction or having all of this fear and anxiety and feeling of adversity that is like threatening to destroy their life, you know, and destroy their world and destroy the capacity for them to take care of themselves and be free. And so I recognize very clearly the like deep fear that is there that will threaten the capacity to manifest a divine overwhelming, and when we give it power. And so this is a ceremony for transforming fear and adversity into power. And so there's the instructions is to write down the story of all the fear that you are feeling right now, the story behind it, what you think, who has power over you, all the things you don't know what to do, you know, and just write it all down. And so then there's a list of ingredients people need to get, you know, like candle, a sharp knife, like maybe you can have sage or some essential oils, like just different things. And there's the whole list. And so we're gonna be having these pages. Nobody's going to read anybody's fears. This is a totally personal process. And so I'm going to be leading people through being able to transform those pages through fire and also this profound breath work to reclaim the energy we have given to this story, to reclaim the energy we have given to this external forces or this other people out there, and to be able to bring all that energy back into our body. And then I'm gonna be teaching a cleansing, energetic, Mexican ancestral witchcraft ritual to be able to cleanse our energy, body, and our physical vessel from all these external influences and all of these other people's energies and projections, so that we can just be us. And then we'll set up our divine altar and we will do all of this offering of our life to this divine will to be lived through us. And at the same time, I'm going to lead them through learning how to intend and how to call onto intent and how to focus in the highest calling, how we can use intent to manifest the true divine path that we're here to unfold in the world at this time. Because all the people that are being faced with this challenge and with this deep fear are actually being prompted into the most amazing opportunity of their life, where they can transform this fear into the most amazing opportunity for actualizing their true divine destiny that they came here to unfold. And so everybody that is signing up is sending me their dates of birth, and I'm gonna figure out their Mayan signs. And then I'm gonna at random pick 5 different people to do a mini download of where they are at this point in time, so that they can get a sense of this divine alignment and this divine perfection that they are in. And so that they're how they are really on the right track. And so this is a ceremony that I want for people to be able to have access to anywhere in the world, so that people around the world, and so that's why I'm also doing it by donation. And so there doesn't have like a set price or anything. And if people don't have anything, they can still sign on. And so this is just my own calling to be able to serve, for people to be able to reclaim this power and actually do ancestral practices, time-tested of millennia practices, to totally just like bring a whole new perspective with a whole new energy.
Nice. That sounds awesome. Well, we'll leave I'll leave the link below this video for that. So yeah, if you're interested in that, guys, click on that. It's coming up in a couple of days. I'll get this video up tomorrow, so it's probably coming up tomorrow. So yeah, jump along and clear all the crap out. It's Age of Aquarius. It's time to dump all the stuff from the last age. So sounds like a great opportunity to do it. All righty. Well, thank you very much for your time, Aiesha, tonight. That was really good. And yeah, I might have to pop along on, well, it's my Tuesday morning, I think, isn't it? To that cleansing ceremony, but we'll definitely leave the links below. Do you have any websites or anything like that? Any other links you want me to leave below?
Sure. My website is my name, which is aieshacosmos.com.
Cool. All right. Well, send me those as well, and I'll put them all below the video so that everyone can come along and check out your work.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thanks again for your time, and have an awesome day.
Thank you so much, Cambell. This was so fun.
It was. Thank you.
You too. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.